So this is a little bit about Mark. He and Rally are both based in Boulder, Colorado. He's a product line manager for the integrations team, and he's got a history at BEA. And you can see a little bit more about him. And with that, we'll get right into the heart of the presentation, and I'll turn things over to Mark and let him start with the presentation and the demo.
Thanks, Jonathan. Let me get a couple screens here together. All right, so I assume everybody can see what I'm projecting here.
Yep.
And what I'd like to do first is give a little bit of an introduction about why we have the Rally connector for JIRA. So, basically the way we see it is that JIRA is really the leading extensible issue tracking platform. They've been around for a long time. They're a great tool. There are a lot of people using them, very focused on issue tracking and workflow. Rally is really the leading Agile lifecycle management platform. We have a little broader focus, looking at stories, test cases, defects, tasks, and that's really where we sit. When you compare the defect management or issue management part of Rally to JIRA, there are some benefits to using JIRA, and you'll hear some of that when Doug Miller talks, as well as a little bit from the demonstrations that we'll give. The benefit here is you can use these two best-of-breed tools, Rally and JIRA, together using the Rally connector for JIRA. All right, so I'm going to go through a quick agenda here. We're going to give you a little bit of background on Rally in case you don't know about us. Talk a little bit about why you'd want to integrate Rally and JIRA together. Doug Miller, one of our joint customers, is going to give a little bit of an overview of how and why he uses both of these tools and how the Rally connector for JIRA has helped him. We'll do a little bit of a Rally product demonstration for those of you who aren't familiar with it. And then we'll give a little overview of the Rally connector for JIRA as well as a demo, and then we'll do some Q&A. So Rally, as a company, we are a complete Agile solutions company. We obviously have Rally software as our product, really a SaaS product that allows really easy deployment of our Agile lifecycle management tool. We have Agile University, which is a training organization that we help run that allows both Rally coaches and external coaches to advance the state-of-the-art in Agile. And then we also have Agile Commons, which is a place on the web where you can share and join a community to share best practices about Agile. So a little bit about Rally. As you see in the middle here, we've got a lot of partners and integrations. It's a little hard to see, but we have connectors, obviously, to Atlassian JIRA, also to Microsoft, IBM, HP products, to many open source source code control systems and build systems. We've just been awarded our 4th consecutive Jolt Award, so we've got a lot of awards and recognition in the press. We've got a lot of customers, both large and small. You see some of those on the left side of the screen. And things are going very well for us with our Agile tooling, training, and community. So the other thing we should know is about Agile. Just for those who don't know about Agile development, it really is a development methodology that encourages faster development cycles and closer collaboration between teams. There's some good independent market research that shows Agile teams are 37% faster to market and 16% more productive. Teams using Rally, which is helps you be even more productive, are 50% faster to market and 25% more productive. Those are stats from an independent firm called QSMA. We have links from our website there. So if you want to use Rally, you can also use JIRA as well, and the Rally connector allows you to get some of these benefits using JIRA. So one of the things we talk about when we focus on Agile is that teams should collaborate more closely. And one of the things that I always look at, especially in my position focused on integrations, is that Agile talks about teams working together, so product managers, developers, testers, documentation people, support, all working together. If your tools are separate, it makes you work separately as well. That's one of the benefits of Rally, is that you have requirements and test cases and defects and tasks all together. So there are some great benefits there. We've then extended that benefit with our Rally connector for JIRA. So if your testers or QA department is using JIRA, you can basically get all of that information together in Rally and have those benefits of Agile development, where all of the records for your project artifacts are in the same system. So I'm going to skip that one and then do a little introduction for one of our joint customers, Doug Miller. He has actually spent 25 years as a software developer and manager. He has a fair amount of Agile experience, and he's been a certified Scrum Master, which is the Agile certification. He's been our customer of Rally for a couple of years and using JIRA for a year. He's also a jazz saxophonist. So with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to him and let him give a quick overview of how he's using Rally and JIRA and the Rally connector for JIRA.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And hi, everybody. My name is Doug Miller. I am a software program manager at Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is a company, as Mark mentioned, with a range of products and services that are used in chemistry and biotechnology laboratories. I work at the San Jose, California site, where our main products are mass spectrometers, which are high-end instruments that are widely used in chemical analysis. Here at the San Jose site, we have approximately 30 software developers and about 25 software test engineers. We also work closely in collaboration with smaller software development teams in Philadelphia, Austin, and Bremen, Germany. Across these sites, there are approximately 15 to 20 software projects currently active. Our software development projects are primarily in .NET, and we use Microsoft Teams system. Here in San Jose, we've been practicing Agile software development for about 3 years, and we've been using the Rally software for about 2 years. One of the challenges that we face in our work is that some of our software products are used as medical devices, which puts our operation under the scrutiny of the FDA. In order to be compliant with ISO 13485, which is the quality management standard for medical devices, while at the same time adhering to the principles and practices of Agile development, we've had to be very careful in our selection of tools for managing our software projects. One area that we've had to pay particular attention to is traceability. Our requirements have to be traceable, not only through the acceptance test cases and test results, but through unit tests, through defects arising from acceptance tests, and through the source code check-ins. We're also required to maintain and archive more written documentation that is typical in an Agile project. While we try to remain mindful of the Agile manifesto and value working software over comprehensive documentation, the FDA, on the other hand, insists on written documentation. So what we do is we capture the necessary details of each user story in Rally and then export it to Word documents via XML for archival. Rally's user story ID provides the necessary link for the traceability through all of those objects. We've also had to spend considerable time selecting the right defect management system for our use, and we've used a number of different commercial products for varying periods of time before settling on JIRA. The Rally tool is fully capable of managing defects within the scope of the project team, but we needed a separate mechanism for people outside the project team to log defects and to view the state of their defects as they move through the system. Our colleagues in Bremen had been using JIRA for over a year and were very pleased with it. And then when we learned that Rally had a connector which provided the bidirectional transfer of defect data and status between JIRA and Rally, we felt this was worth looking into. With this system, someone outside the project team, for example, a field service engineer, can log a defect into JIRA on his laptop. The software core team periodically reviews the defects in JIRA and identifies which ones need to be quickly addressed by checking a checkbox in the defect view in JIRA. The JIRA connector periodically sweeps through the defects and copies the defect description and other attributes into the backlog of the appropriate project in Rally. At that point, the project team assigns the defect to a developer and an iteration and changes its state to indicate that it is being addressed. This information is sent back to JIRA by the connector, so the person who logged the defect is aware of its progress all the way through the workflow until the defect is closed. There are hyperlinks both in JIRA and in Rally set up by the connector so that anyone with the appropriate credentials can go from one tool to the other easily. For example, the person who logged the defect may attach a screen capture in JIRA which illustrates the problem. Rather than copying the image from JIRA to Rally, the developer who is fixing the defect just needs to jump to JIRA with a hyperlink to see the image. One area of particular interest to us is the ability to restrict permissions to perform certain activities to certain individuals or groups. For example, we have a rule that only software test supervisors can close a defect. The Rally tool, following the principles of Agile development, does not place any restrictions on groups to perform actions except for certain maintenance activities that are restricted to members of the subscription admin group. JIRA, on the other hand, has provision for customizing this type of restriction. We're currently working with the development team at Rally to provide the functionality in the connector that whenever a defect state change performed in Rally violates a rule in JIRA, some appropriate action will be taken, such as a note will be entered in the connector's log file. Traceability into unit test results and the source control repository has required us to take advantage of another Rally integration product, the Microsoft Team Foundation Server connector. With this connector, we were able to link Rally user stories, tasks, and defects to the source control that was changed to implement them. There's a link in Rally to the TFS change set and a list of sources that were changed in the Rally artifact. Thus, we have complete traceability from the defect in JIRA to the change set in TFS. So, to summarize, we found the Rally tool and its connectors to JIRA and TFS to be very useful in our work. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mark.
Thanks so much, Doug. I appreciate that, that great overview. So the next thing I'm going to do is give a brief demo of Rally for those of you who haven't seen our tool. As we mentioned before, Rally really allows you to shorten your development cycles, allows you to collaborate across teams and roles and distributed teams. It helps you prioritize, and as we said before, independent research shows that we can increase your team productivity. So from there, I'm going to jump over and show a quick demo of Rally. So here's one of the most used screens in Rally. It's called the iteration status page. In the Rally tool, we talk about two different time boxes, iterations and releases. Iterations are usually short internal development cycles, 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks long. Releases are usually a little longer. Here at Rally, we use an 8-week release cycle. And so on this page, you'll see iteration 6 in this drop-down, and you'll see the work that's scheduled in iteration 6 in the form of a set of user stories. So user stories are basically succinct ways to define requirements using an Agile methodology. You can also see that for each story in each row, we have a name, we have a state, whether it's defined or in progress or completed or accepted. We have some estimates, we have owners, etc. So you can see the work that's going on in iteration 6. If we look at and drill down for each one of these, we can say, well, we can go one level lower on the stories and say each story is composed of tasks. Each task might be assigned a developer, and those have a lower level estimate. So in this way, you can see the user story or the requirement related to the tasks needed to implement it. So there you have something that maybe the product manager or product owner cares more about, and then the tasks that developers care about. If you click here on the test case button, you'll see the same view of the user stories, but with test cases attached to them. You'll see whether that test case last failed or passed, how many of those are passing or failing, who are the owners for those test cases. Again, those test cases are most likely owned by folks in your QA department. If we click here on defects, you'll also see the defects related to that story within the context of that iteration. So here you see a very succinct view of stories, tasks, defects, and test cases all within one tool. And as I said before, Agile really talks about small teams in different roles working together. Having a tool that allows you to see those all together helps immensely. You'll also see that we have multiple teams or project teams. So I'm looking here at what the shopping team is working on. If I navigate through this project hierarchy up to consumer site, we'll see that there's more stories, and because I'm looking down through a hierarchy of teams. So with Rally, it's very easy to navigate through these project teams to set up a hierarchy that maps to your organization. We also have, as you see, burn down charts to show progress and how you're doing with respect to the ideal progress that you should have, whether you're ahead or behind schedule. And again, this is probably the most used page in Rally. If you look at some of the other pages, we have a release status page, which looks very similar, but it shows all of the stories in a particular release. Here I've selected release 2. As well as that page, we have a few others that I'll jump and show you is a backlog page. So one of the core tenets of Agile is to have a prioritized backlog of work that you want to do. And so this is work in the form of user stories that we would like to schedule maybe in the next release or the next iteration. And so you can see that you can easily drag and drop and reorder things in your backlog. Based on that backlog, we also have a nice planning page where you can look at, let me choose a project with a little bit better demo data, where you can look at what's scheduled in each iteration, what's in your backlog, as well as some estimates of how full each one of those are based on the estimates of your team for how much work they can get done. So here you can very easily drag and drop stories from your backlog into one of the iterations, and you'll see that I dropped a little too much work in there, so now we're 108% full. But with the backlog page that I just showed, as well as the ability to very easily plan, you can quite easily keep track of many Agile teams across many iterations and releases. So the iteration and release status dashboard that I showed you stories and tasks and defects and test cases, all within the context of a time box, which was an iteration or a release. We also have what I'd call a summary page where I show a list of all the defects in the system. I can also show all the test cases in the system. I can create custom views here. I can sort or show different columns. So we've got a lot of flexibility in what I'd call these summary pages for all of the project artifacts that you have in Rally. So I think that's the real basic overview of Rally. I showed you the iteration status pages, talked a little bit about backlogs and planning, and then the summary pages that we have in the application. So my goal here was just to give you enough information to get a gist of what Rally does. I'm not going to do Rally justice if I go through a demo in 5 minutes, but I think this will be good enough to give you an understanding of what we're going to start showing next, which is the Rally connector for JIRA. All right, so the Rally connector for JIRA, again, it directly connects between JIRA and Rally. It helps your teams see sort of the whole truth of the iteration within the context of an iteration in Rally by moving defects from JIRA to Rally. And as Doug mentioned before, you can have direct links between those two systems. So you can have a defect that was copied from JIRA in Rally, you can easily link back to the original defect or issue in JIRA. So here's one of the representative workflows that we have, and this is actually what I'm going to demo, and it's pretty close to what Doug uses. The connector is pretty flexible in how it can be set up. So if we start up here on the top left in JIRA, we can create an issue in JIRA. The Rally connector for JIRA then copies that defect. Again, we're using two names here because Rally uses defect, JIRA generally uses bug or issue. We copy that defect over to Rally. We then schedule that defect in Rally. Developers maybe create some tasks to represent their work. We then fix the defect. That defect or issue is then updated back into JIRA, and then we can then close that issue in JIRA. And the close, obviously, is the most important part of an issue or a defect, because that's where, as Doug mentioned, there are many companies who have a stronger workflow, especially around that last state to the close state. So as I mentioned, the connector is written pretty flexibly, where we have 4 what we call configurable services. You can create defects from Rally to JIRA, create defects from JIRA to Rally, and then update in both directions. Depending on your process and where you want defects to start or end, you can use any of these 4 services in different orders to get what you want. Again, we generally abide by the JIRA workflow. There are some minor things we're actually talking to Doug about to get that working perfectly, but we have a solution that allows you to make changes in Rally while still abiding by the JIRA workflow. As I said before, it creates links between Rally and JIRA defects, and since both of our applications are web apps, we can really easily create web links between those two systems. I'll show that in Rally. And then we can map multiple projects. As I showed you, we have multiple projects in a hierarchy in Rally, and as you'll see and probably know from JIRA, there are multiple projects in JIRA, so we can take care of moving things between the right projects. So let me jump over here and show you a quick demo of the Rally connector for JIRA. Okay. So obviously you all know about JIRA, so I'm in JIRA here. I'm in what we're just calling the default project. I have a list of issues already. I'm just going to create a new issue. And so I'm going to put in the default project. It's of type bug. I'm just going to call this, test issue for Atlassian webinar. Put some example text in there. And then I will come down here and just say create that defect. So basically what I've done is created an issue in JIRA. And what's going to happen is in the background we have the Rally connector for JIRA running. So if I jump over here, since most of you are probably reasonably technical, I'm just going to show you a little log file here that's running, and we're going to wait. The service actually runs every minute to connect these two systems together. So while we're waiting, I'm going to tell you that at our Rally office here that's normally full on a Thursday, we've got probably, 10 inches of snow so far since about 4 a.m. this morning, and it's a beautiful blizzardy snowstorm. All right. So there you go. It looks like service 1 completed while I was telling you about the blizzard. And you'll see that the log file says it created defect 29 from JIRA issue DFP778. So if we jump over to Rally, I'm going to hit my little refresh here. Actually, I'm going to move to a view that shows the JIRA link. And you'll see now that I have a defect in Rally that has the same name as the JIRA issue that I just created, and then it has a link to that JIRA issue. If I look at the details for this defect 29, you'll also see that there's some example text, which is what I typed in before. We also map priorities and states and other things between the two. If you come down here to this JIRA link, I can then click that, and I can see and even edit, if I wanted to, the defect in JIRA. So as Doug mentioned, we don't map every single field or all the relationships or all the attachments, but you can very easily link between the two systems, and you'll see here that there's a Rally ID as well. So if I linked here, I'd jump back into Rally. Of course, that would probably create some infinite mirror effect in the browser, but you can see that we can very easily link between those two systems. So what's a normal scenario is that we might go to the backlog, show defects in here, and let's see, you'll see that my test issue for the Atlassian webinar is near the top. So that's a good thing because obviously it's a very important defect to fix. If I jump over here to my plan page and I show defects as well, you'll see that within my plan view I have that defect available in my backlog to schedule. If I then move that over to iteration 6, it will now be assigned to iteration 6 so that developers can work on it, assign an estimate to it, fix it, etc. If I come over to the iteration status dashboard, which is what I showed earlier, you'll also see that that defect is now shown within that iteration because we've scheduled it there. Again, Rally's really good at scheduling work within these iteration or release time boxes. I'm not going to go through all of the flow, but you can imagine creating tasks for this. Your developers would work on those tasks to fix it. Those would roll up into the estimate for the amount of work they could get done for an iteration. When they're ready, they can come over here and edit the defect, and they can say, okay, that state, I'm going to make that state fixed. And so now, if you look at that defect, you'll see that the state is in fact fixed. So if we jump over back to our little text window, we're going to wait for that service to run again. It might have ran just immediately after we made that change. I'm going to double check here and go over to JIRA and see if it did actually update. You'll see that the status here is open right now. I'm going to hit refresh. It actually still is open. I don't think it quite got that change that we had, so I'm going to wait another second here for that to update and tell you that most likely most of us are going to head home so we don't get stuck in the office because we're expecting, I think, a foot or two of snow today. Great. So yeah, one of the things that I can talk about here while we're waiting is that the connector is really configurable. You can change the interval that you run at, whether every minute or every 10 minutes or every 30 seconds if you really wanted to. We can also configure which projects connect to each one, to each, which Rally project connects to which JIRA project. So it's very configurable, and there's a lot of things that you can do to configure it to exactly what you need it to do. All right, so it looks like we just ran again. We're updating that DFP 778. Hit refresh here, and you'll see that status just switched from open to resolved. So again, most of our customers would most likely use it in a scenario like this where part of the workflow happens in Rally, where it might go from submitted to open in JIRA. It gets moved over to Rally when it gets opened. It gets fixed in Rally, which is the same as resolved in JIRA, and then it gets closed in JIRA. So again, if there are different names for the statuses, we can map those as well with the connector. But that's a general flow for how this connector works. And you can see that you can very easily switch over from the JIRA view of defects in projects to the Rally view, where the defects are not only in projects, but they're in iteration and release time boxes. So it really leverages the strengths of both systems to use JIRA for its workflow and permissions and configurability, and Rally for the time box management, the backlog management, the planning. All right, let me jump back over here in the slides. So again, I just talked through that conclusion of using each one of our systems for its strengths, and quite easily to be able to do that with the Rally connector for JIRA Your teams can continue to work in a system they understand, which is JIRA, but you can then start making the move into Agile. So basically, if you are interested in Rally and or the Rally connector for JIRA, we actually have a special website. It's on the bottom here, rallydev.com/JIRA. If you go there, you'll get a little bit of information about the webinar, as well as some information about the Rally connector for JIRA. There's also a download, a zip file that you can get the data sheet for our Rally connector for JIRA. We'll actually have this presentation there, and then shortly we'll have the presentation materials for today's webinar there as well. So if there are any questions on this after the fact, we're going to have a quick Q&A afterwards. But again, this is Mark Ringer, the Product Line Manager for Integrations here at Rally. Here's my email address and phone number. If anybody's interested in more information, I'm certainly willing to help in any way that I can. So with that, I'm going to basically throw it back over to Jonathan, and he's going to do a little bit more of a conclusion.
Sure. Thanks very much, Mark. So I'll just basically remind everybody that there's a questions sort of section in your webinar panel, and so we'll be looking for questions there. Please feel free to send them in, and I'll be asking them to Mark on your behalf. And I want to thank you, Mark, for such a terrific demo. That was a really interesting session.
Thank you.
So the first thing that I think some people are curious about would be, can you give us a little more detail about the actual sort of implementation details of how you built the connector? What sort of plugins you used, what the connector itself is? I mean, it appears to be sort of an independent process running. There's obviously some custom fields in there.
Yep.
Maybe you can give us a little detail about that.
Absolutely. So we actually are using your SOAP API, and we've written the connector in Ruby. Rally has a SOAP REST and JSON interface, and we've actually written what we call the Ruby toolkit that allows us to very easily interact in Ruby, which is a very flexible language, with the data in Rally. We've got a lot of expertise there, and because of that, we decided to write the connector with Ruby. It makes it, again, easy to interact with Rally, and then we use SOAP to connect to JIRA, and we run this just as a service in the background, and as you mentioned, we do have some custom fields on each side, which are web links between the two systems. And so that's how we keep track of which defect in Rally is connected to which issue in JIRA.
Cool. So I assume then that Rally and JIRA and even the connector could all live on independent machines. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Cool. And just from my own curiosity, were you able to implement everything you needed with the existing JIRA SOAP API, or did you have to write any special additional endpoint functionality?
No, actually, it was really useful, and I have the developer here if he wants to comment as well. But yeah, it was really nice, and we were able to interact very easily with the workflow within JIRA as well, which was very helpful to us.
Excellent. That's always nice to hear. Okay, so the next question up is someone has asked, when you link the Rally defect to a user story, does that user story information get stored or linked in JIRA?
Yeah, currently it does not. We'd certainly consider that, but with the ability to link back and forth between the systems so easily with that web link, we've tried to make this as light of a weight connector as possible, but that's certainly something we'd consider in the future. One of the things you need to do is you'd need to configure something on the JIRA side to act as a proxy story. But again, we've tried to keep that integration as lightweight as possible for now, but it's certainly something we'd consider.
Right. So the next question is kind of similar, but some folks are curious about how you map from your iterations and releases to JIRA versions.
Yeah, again, we don't map that field over to JIRA. So,
okay, so JIRA versions are independent of the Rally versions.
Right. As Doug explained, from what we've talked to most of our customers, they're using JIRA for mostly defect or issue tracking, and then of course they're using Rally for that iteration management. And so, we try to not have the connector overlap, because once you start overlapping that functionality in the two systems, it gets hard because they don't do things exactly the same way. And iteration in Rally is sort of like a version in JIRA, but it's not exactly. And so, we've chosen to keep that connector as lightweight as possible to benefit the customers who are using JIRA and Rally for their strengths. Again, this is something that we have a handful, a fair number of customers using already, even though it's just been out for a release or two. But it's something we consider adding in the future. And as I said, most of our customers are using the connector very similar to the way Doug explained.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Next question asks. The next question asks for us to repeat the web link, which was just rallydev.com/JIRA. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I just actually checked that on my computer right here, and it seems to be having some issues, but we'll take a look at that. And
I think it has to be all caps. I believe it has to be all caps right now. We'll probably change that.
Got it.
By the way, am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is JIRA in all caps? I'm just dying to know.
Well, to be honest, I don't know. It has been that way since the very beginning of the company, and it was sort of that way in the logo that Mike and Scott initially designed 7 years ago.
Okay.
And it's been part of our branding ever since, but I never actually heard, I've been here a while, but I never heard the rationale about why they made that decision to begin with, other than the fact that it was supposed to be sort of, yelled and with great fervor.
That's okay. That explains things. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and remind people that, to go ahead and get your questions in. We're just going to take a couple more. But the next one up is someone asking whether Rally can work with Bugzilla. Do you guys have similar integrations with other products?
We do, actually. We have a connector for Bugzilla. It's not quite as full-featured as the JIRA connector, but we're actually probably working on that in the near future. We also have connectors to other systems that I would consider best-of-breed systems like ClearQuest or Quality Center. So again, people can use those systems for what they're good at. Obviously, Quality Center, for example, is a very good test management system. They can have testers working in Quality Center and developers working in Rally. So we do have a fair number of those other connectors, and there's some information if you go to the Rally website under the product section. There's an integration section which has a nice chart of all the different connectors and the systems we connect to.
Excellent. Okay. So I think that's probably going to be it for today. I'll move on to the next slide and show you a couple of contact points and URLs. I'll mention, so I'm Jonathan at Atlassian.com. If you have any questions about Atlassian, JIRA, or our other products, please feel free to get in touch with me. You'll see Mark's email address up there, as well as Doug's. I'll also plug the Atlassian.com/developers link that will give you information about development for and with our products, about our developer network and how you can participate and collaborate and share your work. And also Atlassian.com/TV, where this webinar will be archived in a few days, and you can also go back and look at all of our other webinars, our other Plugin of the Month series, as well as Voice of the Customer and product tours, feature tours, lots of really interesting video content at Atlassian.com/TV. And of course, rallydev.com/JIRA, all capitals, which will give you the information about the connector and about this presentation. And lastly, I will mention the upcoming webinars. April 9th, we've got a Voice of the Customer with Replicate Technologies. And April 23rd, we have another Plugin of the Month with James Matheson of Customware, one of our partners from Australia. You should also take a look at Atlassian.com/about/events for any of these upcoming webinars, as well as our user groups and speaking engagements and conferences that we'll be attending. And if you have questions specifically about the webinars, you can contact Morgan at Atlassian.com, which you'll see right there. And then, of course, I wouldn't want to conclude without mentioning Atlassian Summit. Atlassian Summit is our first worldwide user group. It's going to be in San Francisco at the very end of May, downtown at the Palace Hotel, and there are going to be a ton of Atlassians there, a ton of customers, There'll be 3 content tracks focusing on collaboration, which obviously is sort of Confluence related. Development tools, which will be JIRA and Bamboo and Fisheye and their brethren, and then plugin and APIs, which will be about plugin development in the Atlassian ecosystem. So check out Atlassian.com/summit for more information, and to sign up and register. It costs about $650 before April 20th, $800 after that. And it's going to be a tremendous conference. There are tons of folks coming in from Sydney. Pretty much the whole San Francisco office is going to be there. We're really excited about it. So if you're in the area or could make it to the area, please consider coming to Summit. And that's it for today. I'd like to thank Mark and Doug so much for their time, and thank you all for listening very much. And remember, this will be archived. If you want to go back and look at any details or share it with your friends, it'll be archived at Atlassian.com/TV. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.